On behalf of the Unity Academy, I welcome you all. Here today, our session is focused on introduction of ethics, integrity, and aptitude. Um, Before I begin addressing nuts and bolts of this subject, I would like to clear some of the misconceptions about preparation of civil services. Okay, one thing which I have commonly observed among aspirants is that they start with the prelims exam syllabus, which is often a wrong method. Why? Because even if you clear prelims, say, with due efforts of, say, 5 months, but clearing main exam requires much more time. So the time which is available between prelim and main exam is not sufficient to cover the syllabus. As a part of your preparation plan, you should start with the main exam syllabus, which involves 9 papers, of which 2 papers are qualifying and 7 papers are scoring. And to complete that syllabus, an average student needs at least 10 to 12 months. Okay, I'm not talking about exceptional students. Okay, those who have got average IQ or average performance in academic, they need at least 10 to 12 months. And unless you plan for that period, it is completely pointless to pass even preliminary. So your planning and preparation should be such that in first attempt, you should be able to reach at least till interview stage. So even if you fail in interview stage, still itself, it is the biggest achievement. You're getting my point. But if you fail in prelims, it starts a vicious cycle of the failure. Why? Because by the time your main exam result is out, next prelims are around the corner. So you never get the time to prepare for main exams. And you fall into the trap of failing again and again. And this wastes precious years of your life. Is it? Okay, so this is one thing. Second thing about ethics. Many times, because this is an era of information and technology, right? So digital world is available on fingertips. So before you join the classes, you watch at least few videos of the UPSC preparation, and particularly those of toppers. Does it not? But when you listen to toppers talk, sometimes you don't find unanimity in their opinion as to how to prepare this paper. You're getting my point. So one topper says that this paper is something that you can write out of common sense and there is no specialized preparation is needed. Now, if you look at his marks or her marks, it has worked for him. So you tend to believe, but there is another topper who says that he used to get up at 4 a.m. and used to read biographies and autobiographies of great people, their writings, and used to meditate on their thoughts. And then what he understood, he wrote in the exam. Now, this is also true because it has worked well for him. He has become a topper. But because this opinion lie on the extreme ends, where does the truth lie? The truth lies in their pattern. Are you getting my point? The first topper who said that he wrote it out of common sense had a habit of extracurricular reading. Are you getting my point? He used to read philosophical literature. He used to read self-help books. He used to watch motivational videos. He was interested in spirituality. Are you getting my point? And that had helped him. On the other hand, second topper was nowhere in this regard. He realized that there is a lacuna and he prepared deliberately for it. Now, as far as you is concerned, you should ask where you are in these two areas. The reality is somewhere between. You might have read something in your life so far, which might help you, or you may not have read anything at all. So depending on where you are, your strategy should be decided as far as ethics is concerned. Okay, so one example I often give in this hall is of J&K's topper of 2012, Shah Faisal. Okay, so this guy, Shah Faisal, he decided to prepare civil services just before 8 months of the prelim. So say September, we decided here, and the prelim was due in May. He prepared it without coaching, entire by self-study. It was his first attempt, and he had all India rank one in the first attempt. Now you may ask what happened. Here, people prepare for years, 4 years, 5 years, and sometimes they couldn't even succeed. And this guy who had brushed with the civil services in the first attempt, and he gets first rank. What happened? If you look at his background, when he was in college, he used to write editorials for English newspapers published in JNK. Now you ask yourself, what you used to do in college days? We hardly read newspaper. Even if we read the newspaper, it was only the entertainment section or sports section and not serious policy making, law. He said that the current affair was like bread and butter for him. You're getting money. He used to earn money out. So that kind of background has helped him to pass the exam with comfort, with ease. Are you getting my point? So again, each one of you belong to different background. Your family background, your schooling, your education, the kind of things you have seen and read, the kind of people you have met, how you have interacted with them, the kind of worldview that has been developed. This might help you or this might prevent you. You need to have a realistic understanding of your background and how it is going to help you in the course of your. So it's like, all of you are at different places in Maharashtra and all of you want to travel to Mumbai. Would your path be same? Each one of you would have different paths. Are you getting my point? So similar to strategy. Okay, so this is one aspect I wanted to address. There is another aspect. Many times people believe that once you become adult, you develop a fair understanding about morality. Is it not? Now, I assume that all of you are 18 plus, right? So technically you are adult. So is there any need to teach you about morality? No. What do you think? Is it necessary that I should sit here and tell you this is moral, this is immoral, this is right, this is wrong, you should do this, you should not do this? Preaching is to जो holy men, God men करते हैं. Should I do that? It's what do you think? Is your opinion in this regard? Is there someone you need who should preach you about morality? Parents are करते हैं. You need another parent sitting here and in that room. Yes. No, nobody wants that. By the time you reach your 12th standard, 11th standard, you already have your own opinion. You don't even accept sometimes the opinion of your parents. You sometimes tend to tell them that I know what is right and wrong. Now don't tell me that. Are you getting my point? And by and large, it is true. Are you getting my point? By and large, it is true. But it is true as far as your own personal decisions are concerned. Your own personal life experience. What is good for you? What is bad for you? What works best in your interest? What doesn't work best in your interest? What kind of relationship you need? What kind of relationship you don't need? That you are capable to decide. But when you are making a decision for the others, like society, vulnerable groups, people from other religion, people from other caste, people from other regions, people from other language background, culture background, you have to be humble enough that you may not do everything that is needed to make the decision. The social reality is much, much more complex than we tend to think. So thinking about social reality purely from our personal experience point of view is the biggest error that we are getting now. So ethics helps us to understand that social complexity. And by understanding the social complexity, we can come up with the various dimensions of ethics. And those dimensions can help us to take decision for the society as a policymaker or as a policy implementer. So this is another perspective I wanted to clear. Now how? Let's have a few cases and you'll understand what does it mean. So first case is, will you torture a suspected terrorist? Suppose you are police officers. Okay. In your city, you have got information that a powerful bond has been hidden somewhere. And you have got person who you strongly suspect that he knows where is that. And that bomb is so powerful that if it goes off, lakhs of people will die. Now you need that information urgently before the bomb goes off. Now to get that information, will you torture her? Because if you don't get that information, lakhs of people will die for sure. So how many of you say that, yes, sir, I will torture? Because you don't have to kill him. You have to just torture him to get the information. So how many of you would do that? Yes. Would you do that? Because the cost of not doing that is higher. So of course, if after simple interrogation, he doesn't reveal anything, you're forced to do that, right? So when you do that, when you torture him, how would you justify that? How would you justify it to someone that I had to torture this guy? But again, weight the consequence. Is it not? On one hand, the impending death of lakhs of people. On the other hand, you have to torture an individual. So which is preferable? Torturing an individual to save the lives of people. Now, this school of thought, this thought is known as consequentialism in the field of ethics. There is a school of thought in ethics known as consequentialism, which says that the consequences which you believe are good, you should go for it. Is that clear? Now, this school of thought is not without flaws. It works good in certain cases, but it is a disaster in other cases. So let's have a twist in this. Now imagine that you are torturing this person, but he's not at all responding. He's not even saying that he's innocent. Because had he been innocent, he would have said so. He would have tried to do that. But he doesn't say anything. So again, he's strongly suspicious of him. That he's trained now to bear the torture. If the time comes, he will die, but he won't reveal anything. Now what to do? Then you get the information that he has got a 3-year-old cute daughter. And if you torture her in front of him, he would speak like a parrot. Now, how many of you would torture her to get the information? Because the equation is same. On one hand, lakhs of people are there whose lives are at stake. On the other hand, there is a 3-year-old daughter. You need to torture her to get the information from terrorists. Would you do that? Now what happened? Same equation is there, lakhs of lives on the one hand and one life on the other. How would you explain that? Not torturing that 3-year-old girl. Correct, she's completely innocent. But is that good enough justification? Because in society, when government does something, some people suffer, even though they are not connected with what government does. For example, the dams you are building, the roads you are constructing, the highways you are building, the airports you acquire lands of others, where people have spent their decades, and you give the name that it is for national development. So can I not give the name that I want to say lakhs of people like so it is patriotic act? How come they're indirectly? You are uprooting them from their land, you are uprooting them from their houses, and the compensation is paid after decades. It is not paid immediately. What would they do in between? They're homeless, they are without livelihood, they're displaced. Why do you think Bapat still fights for the displaced people? So this is a complex thing, is it not? Common sensical justification won't serve you good. You need theoretical justification, you need philosophical understanding. And ethics comes in between. Ethics helps you to clear that justification, to bring the clarity as to what you are doing and why you are doing. Is that clear? ये तो करना ही होता है. You are helpless sometimes. Sometimes innocent people suffer because of your decision. There is nothing like black and white. Okay, you cannot ensure a decision which has only good consequences. No, there will be bad consequences. इसको हम opportunity cost बोलते हैं. Everything you do, you lose out something which you might have done also, but you couldn't because you have picked up one choice, so you neglect other choice. So how to justify that choice? So ethics helps you to understand the issue and then to give justification. Okay, let's take another case. Suicide. How many of you think that suicide is unethical thing? Committing suicide is wrong. How many of you think that? Do you believe that? If a person commits suicide, do you believe that he has done wrong thing? It is not correct to end one's own life. Yes. Or is there someone who believes that no, sir, it's not wrong, it's the right thing? Do you believe it is the right thing to end one's own life? Yes. No. Most of the people say it is wrong thing. Correct. If you're asked to justify your choice, you say it is wrong. How would you justify it? How would you explain that it is wrong to commit suicide? That's no longer illegal. However, a few years back, they have decriminalized suicide. Earlier, if you failed in suicide and somehow survived, they used to arrest you and put you in jail. Now it is no longer that. You can safely commit suicide. Earlier, it was a crime. It is no longer a crime. Because now as a society, we have realized what the person needs is counseling and not the punishment. Okay, so again, my question remains the same. How will you justify this? What will be your arguments to say that committing suicide is unethical? Think about this. This is what makes ethics interesting, because it challenges our established notion, established belief. As a part of our upbringing, we have developed certain beliefs, assumptions about life, about what is right and wrong. Ethics challenges that. To tell them, how would you justify it? If at all someone asked you to justify it, how would you justify that? So let me tell you how people justify that. They tend to see that the normal argument is suicide is not the solution to the problem. This is what the standard argument given by people. Right? Is it not what people say? That suicide is not the solution. But it's from your point of view. What about that person who has reached to that stage? For that guy or girl, that might be the only way to solve the problem. Don't you think that? If you are not able to put oneself into the shoes of other person, it indicates lack of empathy. You are thinking only from your perspective. You are not able to think from the other's perspective. And this quality is very much needed in civil services. To be able to put yourself into the shoes of others and then think. So in order to understand the complex phenomenon like suicide, you need to study social sciences, like ethics, like sociology. For example, in sociology, I don't know how many people studied it, but in sociology, there is a thinker known as Emil Durkheim, and he has studied suicide as a phenomenon, social reality. And he has classified suicide into 4 categories. Okay, so one suicide he says that is altruistic suicide. Altruistic का मतलब क्या होता है? What is altruistic? Altruism is done for the sake of others, done for the sake of welfare of others. So sometimes a mother sacrifices her own life for her child. Haven't you come across such news in paper? Yes. Sometimes soldiers sacrifice their lives for the sake of nation. So conceptually it is suicide, they are killing themselves. But with different intention, that's why we call it Balidan, martyrdom. In polar region, in old days, when there was no development of science and technology, transportation, and modern means, whenever there used to be scarcity of food, old people used to sacrifice themselves for the sake of others, just so that remaining food would last for others. Now, would you call such suicide as unethical suicides? No. Rather, we glorify such suicides. Is it not? We tend to honor the soldiers who sacrifice themselves for the sake of nation. We give them firm virtue. Don't you think? So not all suicides are same. This is the first thing you need to realize. They don't fit into the one category. They have different categories. And this is where social sciences help. Okay, there is another suicide known as fatalistic suicide. Fatalistic suicide का मतलब ये है people tend to commit suicide because they are oppressed by too much restrictions, too much factors, too much limitations. For example, it was there among the soldiers when they had harsh conditions, or among the slaves when there was slavery. Slaves haven't had even basic freedom that we have today, freedom of speech, freedom to live their own life. Their children used to get sold in the market like animals. So then slaves used to commit suicide. In modern time, you might have come across news in papers that newly married women commit suicide when they are oppressed by their in-laws. Haven't you come across? सब उनको परेशान कर रहे हैं, husband भी साथ नहीं देते, in-laws परेशान कर रहे हैं, parents have turned their back on the lady. So what she thinks, this is the only way to solve the problem. Now, in this case, would you blame the victim? Would you say that it is wrong? No, because system has created a condition in which people are left with no option but to commit suicide. Even student suicide comes into this category. Is it not? Because the burden of excessive expectation by parents, peers, society left them no option. I'm getting my point. Then there is another interesting category known as anomic suicide. Anomic का मतलब है in the language of sociology lawlessness. So when the rules which define your life, which guide your life, suddenly disappear, it creates a vacuum in your life. And when people don't know how to deal with this vacuum, they commit suicide. So I'll give you an example. A few years back in Bangalore, an IT professional couple had committed suicide by writing the note that whatever they wanted to enjoy in their life, they have done everything. And now there is nothing to left for, to live for. They're committing suicide. Now it might appear bizarre to you. लाइफ में इतना तो सब होता है, ऐसा नहीं हो सकता ना कुछ नहीं बचा है, सब तो कर नहीं सकते हैं, पैसा है आपके पास, अपॉर्चुनिटीज है, बट दे थॉट लाइक कुछ फैमिली में ऐसा भी होता है ना, व्हेन अ क्लोजेस्ट पर्सन डाइज सडनली पीपल एक्सपीरियंस वैक्यूम एंड व्हेन दे आर नॉट एबल टू डील विद द वैक्यूम दे कमिट सुसाइड. ओके, व्हेन देयर वाज यूनाइटेड आंध्रा, तेलंगाना नहीं तब, इट हैड इट्स सीएम वाईएसआर. तो अभी जो जगनमोहन रेड्डी है ना, उनके फादर, he died in helicopter crash. So many of his fans, followers committed suicide because their leader had died suddenly. Now for us it might appear bizarre, but if you put yourself into their shoes, it might appear rational too. Are you getting my point? So again, social sciences help you to understand all these complexities, and then you can respond in an appropriate way to your judgments. Is that clear? सबको समझ में आ रहा है? And that is what highlights the need to study ethics. When it comes to social reality, you'll have to be humble enough to understand that what you know may not be enough to take right decision for society. Is that clear? All right. We'll start with two basic questions. First is what is ethics? And second, why its study has become more important now than ever. Okay, so write down the definition of ethics. Ethics is a systematic study of ethics is a systematic study of human actions. Ethics is a systematic study of human actions from the perspective of their rightfulness or wrongfulness. From the perspective of their rightfulness or wrongfulness. So this is a basic functional definition. Okay, it doesn't reveal too much, but it gives you a hint as to what is ethics. What we do in ethics is we study human actions and we try to categorize them whether they are right action or wrong action. But second question is more important. Why do you think UPSC thought that now it is a high time to introduce ethics into the scheme of examination? Why? Because it is not an accident, right? It was done deliberately. So why? Why your scheme of examination was changed in 2013?
Of to perform that action. And the majority of them are the structured people who do not actually understand that their action will be performed is actually important and not necessarily for the society effect. That is why you will see introduce this subject for the people who hold a lot of power at this point.
Okay, but my counter argument is corruption has always been there. Is it not? Is it the new phenomenon? No. Even if you read Kautilya's Arthashastra, he laments about corruption. His argument in Arthashastra is it is very difficult to predict the corruption, detect the corruption in the system. It is as difficult as to detect when the fish has jumped the water. So corruption has always been there. People with power tend to corrupt. They tend to misuse the power. This phenomenon has always been there. But why they chose 21st century? Why it took them so long to introduce this subject? Why it was not done earlier? It has to have some specific reason. क्या हो सकता है गेस करो 2013 में क्यों आया पहले क्यों नहीं आया and then people you can also answer in chat box. I might go through your replies. Ethics का definition ये है ethics is a systematic study of human actions from their perspective of rightfulness or wrongfulness. Yes. So what do you think might be the reason for which they have introduced it in 21st century? क्या लगता है? Corruption तो पहले से ही सनी की है नया कुछ तो बढ़ रहा है सोसाइटी में That's why administrative systems are being changed. एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में बदलाव तभी होते हैं सोसाइटी चेंज सोसाइटी इज नो लॉन्गर सेम क्या बदला है क्या लगता है what do you think might have been changed that has necessitated change in administration and in turn that has necessitated change in scheme of examination in last few decades something has changed drastically. The society is no longer same. You believe your childhood days? Do you think what we face today is similar to what you had seen in your childhood? You believe that? No. If I retrospectively look at my lifespan, my childhood days, it has changed a lot. क्या वजह है गेस कर सकते हैं इसका स्पेसिफिक आंसर है एलपीजी रिफॉर्म्स सुना इसके बारे में एलपीजी रिफॉर्म्स इकोनॉमिक्स लिबरलाइजेशन प्राइवेटाइजेशन एंड ग्लोबलाइजेशन assured in 1991 it has changed the rule of government earlier government was the controller of economic activity इसको बोलते थे लाइसेंस कोटा परमिट राज Have you heard about this? Government used to give licenses to many activities. Government even used to decide quota of your production. But these days, government acts as a regulator and not as a controller. So the government role is replaced by private sector. Is that clear? It has brought prosperity to our society, which was not earlier there. So I'll give you an example. The generation of your grandparents could build their own home by the time they were about to retire. Is that clear? आपके ग्रैंडपेरेंट की जो जनरेशन है उन्होंने खुद का घर कब बनाया when they were about to retire, when they had enough fund in store to build the house. आज जो जनरेशन है उसको शादी के पहले ही घर चाहिए है ना मैट्रिमोनियल ऐड कर पढ़ते हो उसमें देखो एस्पिरेशंस आर वेरी मच डिसिप्लिन so material aspirations has increased people are exposed to media lives of others ये पहले था क्या होता in rural area people used to get access to hardly few channels दूरदर्शन आज जो हम केबल देख रहे हैं सैटेलाइट टीवी ये पहले नहीं था एक्सेस ही नहीं था हाउ वुड दे इमेजिन डिफरेंट लाइफ unless they come into contact with the others अब सबके मटेरियल एस्पिरेशन बढ़ गए इवन कॉमन मैन ड्रीम्स अबाउट अ गुड लाइफ उसका घर चाहिए फोर व्हीलर चाहिए वेकेशन चाहिए फॉरेन जाना है बच्चों को पढ़ाना है ऑल these aspirations have increased exactly so the civil servants are drawn from the same society so why they should not have similar aspirations or more aspirations for getting money on top of that they tend to hold more power compared to common man so there are chances they might misuse the power their own interests rather than for the interests of society ये chances बढ़ गए are getting my point so what they are trying to do they are trying to check values of people before they enter into this so this entire paper is an attempt to do that समझ में आ रहा है ये पेपर के थ्रू क्या कर रहे हैं आप दोनों को ये समझने की कोशिश करें and they are trying to select only those people whose values are in line with the values needed for success because our society is no longer safe. Is that clear? समझ में आ रहा है? आज हम क्या क्या देखेंगे, देखते हैं ये 5 चीजें हम देखेंगे इन ब्रीफ। सिलेबस क्या है, क्वेश्चन पेपर कैसा होता है, क्या कहाँ से पढ़ना है, ये प्रिपरेशन की 3 चीजें हैं जिसको बोलते हैं ट्रिनिटी ऑफ प्रिपरेशन। सिलेबस, पीवाईक्यूज एंड बुक्स, इनको आपको ट्रायंगुलेट करना है। बट उसमें और 2 चीजें चाहिए, बिकॉज दिस इज कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम, नो मैटर हाउ मच यू वर्क हार्ड, only the selective posts are going to get filled. You need to excel compared to others. And to make that happen, you need to understand first demand of the exam. What are the objectives? And second, how to realize those expectations in your answers. Is that clear? So once you understand all these 5 elements, the roadmap will be clear as to preparation. The discussion of all these 5 elements will help you to have an idea as to how to start preparation of the things. Okay, so let's start with syllabus. I'll show you the table. Please take a look and then we'll discuss. So in this syllabus, if you look at table, the prima facie impression is ethics is not a single subject that is going to be there in your syllabus. Even though we call it paper of ethics, it has 3 distinct disciplines in your syllabus. And that's why this paper is interdisciplinary in nature. So the left hand side column is known as moral philosophy. That is another name for ethics. So that is the first subject, which is going to be the axis around which the subject is going to revolve. Second component is social psychology. It is a branch of psychology which deals with the group behavior. And third is public answer. Now why? Each subject has its own demand, has its own nature or approach to handle the reality. For example, moral philosophy or ethics tends to tell you what is right and wrong and how to decide. That is the main objective of ethics. Is that पहला जो लेफ्ट वाला है उसका ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? आपको सही गलत बताना और वो कैसे डिसाइड करते हैं इसका मेथड भी बताना। तो वो शुरुआत कहाँ से करेंगे? पहला टॉपिक है एथिक्स एंड ह्यूमन इंटरफेस। इसका मतलब है कि ह्यूमन लाइफ में एथिक्स कहाँ से आता है, कहाँ आता है? Do you think ethics comes in everything that we live? हर एक चीज में एथिक्स आता है क्या? फॉर एग्जाम्पल आइसक्रीम ही हुई, इसका मोरालिटी के साथ कुछ संबंध नहीं? Not necessary. The hobbies you develop, the likes and dislikes you have, are they necessarily connected with morality? For example, you like Western attire than Indian attire. Is there anything to do with morality? Not necessary. You have chosen to be civil servant rather than to be engineer. Do you think it is necessarily connected with morality? No, it might be connected with your preferences. Is that clear? So आपको ये समझना है in human life, where does ethics start? What is the role of ethics in human life? Then second point is, what is contribution of thinkers as to theories? तो ये थिंकर इंडियन भी हो सकते हैं या वेस्टर्न भी हो सकते हैं। तो वेस्टर्न में हम प्लेटो, एरिस्टोटल, सोक्रेटिस ऐसे थिंकर पढ़ेंगे। इंडियन में विवेकानंद है, महात्मा गांधी, दयानंद सरस्वती है, अमर्त्य सेन, ये पढ़ो। तो इन्होंने मोरालिटी के बारे में क्या कहा? Then what are the traditional sources of ethics? ये भी हम समझना है, which common man rely on. तो बताओ कॉमन मैन इसको प्रेफर करता है एज सोर्स ऑफ एथिक्स? कॉमन मैन के लिए क्या सोर्स है एथिक्स का, मोरालिटी का? कस्टम ट्रेडिशन का देखा है क्या? कस्टम एंड ट्रेडिशन, what society does on last, common man does that. What is done generation after generation, फादर ने किया, ग्रैंडफादर ने किया, तो नेक्स्ट जनरेशन भी कर रहा है। रिलीजन भी, धर्म जिसको बोलते हैं, for many people religion acts as a source of morality, is it not? Then in modern life law is also there. Is it not? कानून हमें बताता है ना क्या सही है क्या गलत है। तो ये जो सोर्सेस है which common man rely on to make sense of morality, what are their limitations? ये भी आपको मालूम होना चाहिए। You cannot rely on them all the time. Are you getting my point? तो इसका भी डिस्कशन ethics. That's why I told you ethics many times challenges the established notion. So this is what ethics is all about, and this is the mere syllabus. See, again, they don't expect you to be ethicist. Simple. Ethicist का मतलब the one who is scholar in the field of ethics. No, they don't expect you to. What they want is you should have a general awareness about it. Simple. Is that clear? Second component is social cycle. So what is social psychology? What is its focus? The focus of social psychology is on human behavior when the person becomes part of group. So what is the underlying assumption here? The underlying assumption is a person tends to behave differently when he or she is part of group rather than when he or she is alone. Do you agree with me? Now the way you are sitting in this hall and listening to me, would you do that at home? If you are watching online? No, you might be lying on the bed. You might be doing multitasking at the same time listening to lecture. Why? Because group is absent over there and group is present over there. Is it not? So group has a powerful influence on human behavior. And there are multiple examples. So how many of you have lived hostel life? Right. So do you behave similarly in hostel compared to your home? What happens when the light goes off in the night in the hostel? क्या होता है? Wild side of the people comes out. Is it not? They tend to scream pranks on each other. क्यों करते हैं वो सब? Because group is there. Imagine a single guy is there in the hostel and the light goes off. Would he behave like that? No. Rather, he would remember all the stories of the ghost that he has learned in his entire childhood. Have you been to shopping in group? Group में कभी shopping किया? Have you observed yourself how you behave when you are part of group compared to when you are shopping alone? You become aggressive bargainer. You're getting my point. अगर सामने वाला 1000 से शुरू कर रहा है तो आप 100 से शुरू करते हो। वो पावर कहाँ से आता है? वो अग्रेशन कहाँ से आता है? Because group gives you that leverage. There are people to support your arguments. यहाँ भैया हमने 100 से ही दिया, ये 100 में ही आता है, ज्यादा बोलता। But when you are alone, you don't do that. You don't become that much aggressive bargainer. Why? Because group is absent. Now, if you look at society, sometimes group exerts destructive influence on human behavior. So, for example, gang rapes. They tend to be more brutal than individual rapes. Getting my point? Sometimes people tend to kill the victim brutally. What about communal rights? Neighbors who have lived together for decades suddenly turn out to be enemy of each other. Why? How? What about mob lynching? An innocent person is killed by the mob on the suspicion that he or she is the thief. So tomorrow, as an administrator, you are going to deal with not only individuals, but also with, and unless you are able to anticipate group behavior, you cannot have strategy to deal with the large size. Have you come across news that whenever Mahakumbh Mela happens in India, and when it happens successfully, the administration is congratulated. Many a times, it is a part of case study in IIMs that how administration handles such a large scale crowd. Are you getting my point? So group psychology is very much less. But again, social psychology is a very vast field. It has many more topics, but they have picked up only two important topics known as attitude and emotional intelligence, because they are intrinsically connected with the job that you are going to perform in general. But there are other parts like criminal psychology, but that is not talked to everyone. So tomorrow, if you become IPS in your training academy at Hyderabad, you'll be taught criminal psychology as well, that how criminal think. Is that clear? So social psychology is going to be very much part of your job. And then the third component known as public administration. Why? Because once you get selected, whatever you are going to do in your office or in your field, that you are expected to do it within the framework of law and system. You cannot cross the system. You cannot take law into your own. So before you do that, you should know how right and wrong is decided in the field of administration. एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन में खुद का भी नजरिया हो सकता है ना सही गलत की तरफ, और वो एक आदमी के नजरिए से अलग भी हो सकता है। समझ में आ रहा है आपको? जैसे मान लो आज आपको जो सही गलत लग रहा है, tomorrow as an administrator you may not think similarly. Is that clear? तो वो नजरिया भी आपको समझ लेना है. So look at this syllabus. What they have is aptitude. What kind of aptitude is needed for an administrator? Then what kind of foundational values that are? Then what are the systemic values that are? Which are not necessarily individual values, but systemic values. Then what does it mean to have probity governance? What are its various dimensions? तो ये सब क्या करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं? They're trying to create a systemic awareness as to what is right and wrong in the field of administration. So administration में किसी को सही गलत कर रहे हैं, for example, obedience चाहिए, superior का order follow करना चाहिए, इसको सही कहा जा रहा है, क्यों? ये आपको समझना. Why they tend to focus on rules, processes, protocols, standard operating procedures, what we call as SOPs. ये आपको समझना चाहिए. And once you study all this theoretical point, then the last part comes case study on all of them. So this is in nutshell your syllabus. Okay, this paper is not merely about ethics. It is also about social psychology. It is also about public administration. Is that clear? Syllabus clear? Next is question paper. Okay, so please take a look and then we'll discuss. Pay attention to details. You know, one of the best quality of administrator is he or she is able to pay attention to details. Because the devil lies in details. Is it not? Haven't you heard this saying, devil lies in details? बहुत बार एडवर्टाइजमेंट में आप lucrative offers देखते हो, 60% off, 70% off. But if you pay attention to the bottom of the advertisement, they have star terms and conditions apply, and they don't even tell you what are the terms and conditions. So the devil lies in details. A good administrator is the one who has developed an eye for details. Have you taken a look? Can I ask you a few more questions? How many total questions you needed to answer in this paper? 18 questions. Correct. How many number of words you are expected to write in this paper? Total number of words? 8. कितने वर्ड्स है पता? कितने वर्ड्स आपको लिखने हैं? 3 घंटे में. Why approx? There are numbers over there. In section A, you have 12 questions. Per question 150 means 1800. In section B, you have 6 questions. Per question 250 means 1500. 1800 plus 1500, 3300. In 3 hours, you are expected to write 3300 words. So, how many in 1 hour? 1100. Correct? So 1100 words in 60 minutes. Correct? So how many in 6 minutes? 110. How many in 1 minute? Approximately 17. Approximately 16 to 17. So for 1 word, how much time is available for you? If you are expected to write 16 to 17 words in 1 minute, how much time is available for 1 word? 30 seconds. Now, please notice that I haven't counted the time required for reading and understanding the question. Are you getting my point? I'm just calculating the time simply to write, not to think, not to read and understand. Correct, because case studies sometimes are of bigger length, and sometimes your answer size also. Now ask yourself, are you prepared enough to deal with this kind of scenario? Okay, will this happen overnight? So it's like running a marathon. It takes a long time preparation. So my basic cardinal rule for aspirant is write 1 page a day, minimum 1 page a day. आपको लिखना है, no matter what you are doing. एक पाँच 1 page a day rule implement करो. By the time you are writing main exam, you'll be comfortable. And let me tell you another thing. You won't be writing only 1 paper in a day. You'll be writing 2 papers in a day. You'll be writing for 6 hours in a day. That kind of stamina needs to be developed. Do you know what my students do now? Those who are appearing for main exam, they write 3 papers a day. Practice. So writing 2 papers a day is nothing for them. So they sweat so much before exam. In hall they are happy because they already know they have done so much. ये तो आप कुछ नहीं. 9 घंटा लिखना आप imagine करना. उस stage तक जाने के लिए you have to work consistently. So this is not exam of your intelligence. This is an exam of your patience, consistency. Even an average student can pass this exam provided he or she has consistency. And even a bright student from IIT can fail the exam if he or she doesn't show the consistency. So ये picture आपके मन में clear होना चाहिए. What it takes to pass the exam. Okay, let's look at section. In section A, broadly, there are 4 categories of question. One is based on quotes. So every year, minimum 3 quotes are given in your paper. These are the sayings of great people. So they might be saints, they might be poets, they might be politicians, they might be thinkers, reformers, philosophers, sometimes businessmen also. Okay, but their saying is given, and what they are asking is interpretation of this saying according. But sometimes they give context to the book. And they ask you to interpret the book in the given context. So that context might be current situation, that context might be historical situation, that context might be public administration. Sometimes they say this quote, how it applies to public administration. Is that clear? And this is the repeated pattern. Every year, invariably, without failure, 3 quotes minimum are given. Second is example based question. Here they are testing your general knowledge about a concept, about a thought, about a theory. So here they emphasize on example and they ask you to illustrate something through example by explaining examples. So here, merely writing theoretical arguments is not required. You need to substantiate those arguments with the help of example. Then third category belongs to definition, concept, and meaning. So sometimes they ask you straightforward definition. And here you can write bookish definition. But sometimes they ask you what do you understand by XYZ. So here you need not repeat the definition, but you have to rewrite the definition in your own words, where you are able to show your understanding about that concept. And sometimes they give you 2 or more concepts and they ask you relation between 2 concepts. For example, once they had asked how ethical decision making, how emotional intelligence leads to ethical decision. So there are 2 concepts. One is emotional intelligence, another is ethical decision making. And you should be able to understand the exact connection between these 2 concepts. So this is third category. And in fourth category, known as application, they want you to solve some of the problems by suggesting steps or solutions. So this is known as application of concept or application of theory. Is that clear? So even though we call section A as a theory section, it is not purely theory section. It is rather known as application oriented section, where you have to substantiate your arguments with the help of examples, with the help of solutions, with the help of your own understanding. And in that sense, civil services exam as a whole is a dynamic exam. It is not a static exam, where you can study PYQs and pass the exam. This is the you have to keep abreast with the current affairs. You should be able to make ethical inquiry into current happening. Exactly. In section B, known as case studies section, every year they have given 6 case studies. For each case study, the marks are either 20 or 25. Now the space is fixed in your answer sheet. Okay, they give you blank pages, but in blank pages, questions are already printed. So for 5 marks, they give you 1 page. Is that clear? So for case studies, you have either 4 or 5 pages, depending on marks. And you'll have to cover up your answer in the given space only. If you scratch your answer, your space is gone. You cannot add a supplement. That facility is no longer there. It used to be there before 2012. So well thought out answer ही आपको चाहिए. लिखने के बाद सोचना. Now in case study there are major 2 categories of question. Case studies. One is based on option. Either they give you option or they ask you to create the option. Now this case study part, we deal with it towards the end of course, not before. Why? Because the theoretical foundation needs to be built first. तो पहले आपको ऑप्शन दिया जाता है या फिर आपको ही बोला जाता है इसमें ऑप्शन क्या करो तो बताओ. Now this kind of case study where either you are officer or you are advisor. and you are expected to provide a concrete solution to the problem. But sometimes, instead of asking option, we simply ask what is your course of action and what is your justification. So, ऐसे case study को हम situation based case study, where a situation is given in the form of case study, and you are someone into that situation, and you are expected to handle this situation. But there is another form of case study known as issue based case study, where issues, pan-Indian issues are taken and systemic approaches are asked. Now, these issues are such that which single person cannot solve. Even if you are prime minister, you cannot solve these issues. What you need is system. For example, climate change. Do you think prime minister alone can handle climate change issue? You need system for that. No bureaucrat, no person can handle these situations. So what they expect here is your understanding of the issue and systemic solutions that you are likely to provide for this. Is that clear? So minimum you have to handle 18 questions in each decade. Now if you look at time division, 90 minutes are for section A, 90 minutes are for section B. Okay, 180 minutes, correct? In section A, there are 12 questions. So if you divide minute over questions, 7.5 minutes are available for each question. Is that right? 90 minutes for 12 questions. का मतलब क्या है? 7.5 minutes for one question. उसको पढ़ना है, समझ लेना है, आंसर. In section B, there are 15 minutes for one case. ये distribution of time मन में रख के भी आपको पेपर लिखना. Is that clear? Okay. Now, for the sake of your awareness, I'll show you some of the questions. Just go through it, try to understand what it takes to answer these questions. So some PYQs I'll show you. पहला देखिए. So many times it has been observed that with things, in single question, they are asking multiple questions. It's not like this. So if you are expected to handle multiple questions in 150 words, there is a little scope to give introduction and write conclusion. You have to start directly by hitting the bullseye. That's my point. You cannot waste your space. Is that correct? Let's take a look at second question. What do you understand by this question? Yes. The crisis of values in modern times is stressed to narrow perception of the good life. Discuss. What does it mean? What is crisis of values? Good values are not visible in the people's behavior in modern times. Why? Because the way we perceive good life, that perception is narrow. Is that correct? What does it mean? Narrow perception. क्या बता सकते हो? Narrow perception का मतलब क्या है? Narrow perception of good life. Means, for example, correct. So material aspects are given more important. So again, I told you the matrimonial ads. उसमें क्या वो देख रहे हैं? Material things, income, physical output, physical appearance. यही देख रहे, values देख रहे क्या? Compassionate चाहिए, honest चाहिए, liberal चाहिए, broad minded चाहिए. ऐसे करके नहीं दिख रहे, है ना? गुड लाइफ इनके हिसाब से क्या है? सैलरी, अच्छी सैलरी पैकेज होना चाहिए, खुद का घर होना चाहिए, है ना? लैंड होना चाहिए, एसेट्स होना चाहिए, बस वो ही गुड लाइफ. So what people tend to believe, this is what it takes to have it. They give importance to ends rather than means, and values disappear. ये आपको बता रहा हूँ. Now, can you write these comments in this? Yes. But if you are aware about thinkers who have talked something about good life, would it not be your arguments would be more qualitative than the others? Common sense arguments. Yes. That's clear. So ethics help you to build qualitative argument. जो आप सिर्फ कॉमन सेंस से अच्छे से लिंक लिख पा रहे. ठीक है. ओके, मोरल फिलोसॉफी के लिए you understand the question? Yes, not quite common sense again. But if you already know which thinker has said so, then you not explain in a better fashion. You already know that theory or school of thought which emphasizes on the same statement. So many times it has been observed by UPSC that sometimes they give you question without taking name of thinker. Thinker का नाम ही नहीं देगा आपको सवाल, आपको figure out करना that this thought is connected to the particular thinker. So, and second part is application. How can you implement in public life? You have to write concrete application that are in the current affair. You cannot write hypothetical question or hypothetical example. Okay, let's take second question. Now, can you write this common sense here? You need to have specific awareness that as to which John Rawls, what he has said about social justice, and how it is applicable in Indian context. Are you getting my point? Then there is another type of question. Quote by Gandhi. Anger and intolerance are the enemies of correct respect. Now you can write this question from ethical perspective as well as psychological perspective. Why? Because anger is an emotion. It's not. So when you have anger, your understanding is limited. So how this process happen? That you have to make clear in your answer. Is that clear? What about social psychology? Young people with ethical conduct are not willing to come forward to join active politics. ऐसा होता है ना, जो एजुकेटेड लोग हैं, यंग है, हाउ मेनी ऑफ देम आर विलिंग टू बी पॉलिटिशियन? नो, अनलेस यू हैव बैकग्राउंड ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स। घर में कोई है पॉलिटिक्स में, तभी तो आप सोच सकते हो। So what they are asking you to suggest steps to motivate these young people so that they will willingly join the politics. Now, पहला सवाल मेरा ये सवाल आपको क्यों पूछा जा रहा है? Because as a bureaucrat, this is not going to be your work. और ना फिर भी आपको पूछा जा रहा है, because bureaucrat don't do such things. Do they ask young people? No. What they ask at the most is to vote, not to join active politics. Then why are they asking you this question? Wow. वो सवाल आपसे पूछ रहे हैं। Yeah. This why aspect is important.
Would be looking at living the politics. And leaving politics can be converted into something that people actually believe.
No, through this question, they want to understand your perception about current politics. They want to see whether you are kind of guy who says that politics is all about. If it is like so, then you are not right person to enter into politics. Because tomorrow you are supposed to work close with the politician. Are you getting my point? So this is a very clever question. Indirectly, they want to see your perception about politics. Now, why I have put this question under the category of social psychology? इसमें social psychology कहाँ है? Why it is not part of ethics? Or why it is not part of public administration? इसको social psychology के एंगल से देखना। Because there is a word known as yellow. But there is another word known as motivation. And motivation is a part of psychology. Are you getting my point? So there are various motivational theories in psychology. If you are able to understand them and apply them, your answer is going to be better than that. Okay, let's take a look at another picture. So there are three questions here. Right. One is what is emotional intelligence? Here you can simply give definition. But second is application oriented. That suppose you want to develop this among the people, how will you do it? And third, interconnection. How emotional intelligence helps in ethical decision making. Now tell me, do you have an opportunity to give your introduction and conclusion? Very less. Are you getting my point? So again, you have to have developed habit of writing your answer in 150 words, that too in a concise manner. Is that true? Public administration is सवाल देखिए and tell me, can you answer out of common sense? कुछ सवाल इतने स्पेसिफिक है, you need specific awareness. वो भी ऑथोरिटेटिव टेक्स्ट से आ रहा है, यहाँ ये डिफाइन है ओरिजिनल। Okay, let's look at case study. Can you read this? Have you understood the case study? Now, in this case study, already options are given to you. But towards the end, they are not asking you to restrict to these options. They are also asking you can come up with any other option which you think is right. Now, in this case study, you need understanding of all the three components of syllabus. You need to understand ethical perspective. You need to understand social psychology and you need to understand what is wrong with the system. Is that clear? Because once it happens, then your answer or response will be more correct. But now there is another case study, say this one, where options are not given. Please read this. Now, how will you create the option here? So there is an approach in ethics known as SWOT approach, where you need to analyze strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. That can help you to come up with the right options. And once you have created the option, you know how to evaluate the option. Evaluation of the merits and demerits. इसमें pros and cons क्या हो सकते हैं? Exactly. Now, but there is another case study known as issue-based case study. अब आप मुझे इसका डिफरेंस बताओ पहले वाला और इसमें. Now, do you think one person can solve all these problems? No, you need system. So this is known as issue-based case study. In earlier case study, you were someone who were expected to solve some problem. But here you cannot say, I will do this. तो हमारा टोन बदल जाएगा. आपको क्या कहना है? हमें क्या करना चाहिए? What we should do as a system, like government, people, society. तो आपकी focus में आना चाहिए. Then only your answer will be more relevant. Is that clear? Okay, now it is time to write books, references. So the very basic resource I want you to begin with is right. 11-12 standards textbooks of 11-12 standard textbooks of philosophy of Maharashtra State Board. Because unfortunately, NCERT hasn't published philosophy textbooks. Maharashtra State Board. Okay. The next resource right now is Justice by Michael Sandel. Justice by Michael Sandel. Michael Sandel is a professor of Harvard University, where he teaches the topic justice. And his lecture videos are available on YouTube based on the same topic, justice. So what I want you to do is to purchase this book and read it, simultaneously watch the lectures. Both will help you to understand Western thinkers. Okay, so ये जो source है किसके लिए है? Western thinkers. Second is NCERT's 11-12 standard psychology text. Eleven 12 standard psychology textbooks of NCERT's. It will cover your social psychology part. In this book, you have to read 3 chapters. 3 chapters. 11th standard में 9th chapter है. 12th standard में 6th and 7th chapter. Now all these documents are uploaded on our Telegram channel. So write down its name. Unique Ethics Discussion Group. The name of the channel is Unique Ethics Discussion Group. Then the third resource for public administration component is second ARC's 4th report, Ethics in Governance. Second ARC's 4th report, Ethics in Governance. So this is an authoritative source on ethics because it is published by government. You can safely use its literature to write your answers. The next is Good Practices Handbook by Niti Aayog. Good Practices Handbook by Niti Aayog. This is useful for writing examples. In addition to this, every year, good governance awards are given to bureaucrats in India. Are you aware of this? तो सुना इसके बारे में? लिखो, Good Governance Awards given by Government of India. Good Governance Awards. ये आपको न्यूज़पेपर में मिल जाएगी, गूगल करोगे फिर भी मिल जाएगी. Okay, this is given to good work done by bureaucrats on district level or national level. Okay. Then study material will be given by Unique Academy. It will be a comprehensive source, but it should be used as a secondary source, not as a primary source. Okay. Primary will be basic books. Then there is another book published by Unique Academy, Unique Publication. It is for writing answers. Write on its name, Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude, Answer Writing and Essential Guide. Ethics, Integrity, Aptitude, Answer Writing and Essential Guide. So in this, there are model answers for papers from 13 to 20. And this is more than enough. Now let me tell you one important thing as far as ethics is concerned. Compared to other papers, the syllabus of ethics is less. So syllabus कम होने के advantages भी है, disadvantages. ठीक है. Advantage ऐसा है आपको ज्यादा पढ़ना है. But what happens when you access books available in the market? They give you more than necessary. बहुत सारी किताबें, starting from lexicon, Reddy Subbarao, Upadhyay, Karthikeyan, many more are there. But if you go through that, they give you more than necessary. And if you read all of it, your answer look like bookish answers, theoretical answers. Because if you read too much, it will encroach your mental space required for thinking. आप thinking ज़्यादा नहीं कर पाओ. आप सिर्फ क्या करते रहोगे, पढ़ते ही रहोगे. समझ में आ रहा है? तो आपको क्या करना है, कम ही पढ़ना, तो बार बार पढ़ना और उसको अप्लाई करना. But this is the disadvantage, because so far our education system hasn't taught us how to think. जो भी हमने सीखा है वो एक्सीडेंटल है, वो पर्पसिव डेलिबरेटली. सोचना कैसे है ये आपको इस एग्जाम में पहले सीखना. How to think logically, rationally, and how to articulate it in a persuasive manner. ये आपको पहले सीखना. And this is a hard task. तो बहुत बार ऐसे होता है, even though we complete the course of 30 lectures for ethics, and towards the end we take one exam, small exam होता है, even take out, फिर भी लोग लिख नहीं पाते. And this is the case with the people who are appearing for main exams. Why? Because studying a subject and writing for exam, these are two different. और ये आपको समझना. तो कम ही पढ़ना है आपको, लेकिन जो पढ़ोगे उसको ढंग से समझ देना है और उसको अप्लाई करना है. Okay, so this is preparation part. Now let's go for excellence part. How to excel? उसके लिए कुछ important points से शुरू करते हैं. So first is why. क्यों? ये स्टोरी क्यों? उसका अपरेंट आंसर है to check candidates ethics. ये पेपर क्यों आया? इनको ये मालूम होना चाहिए कि आप कौन हो. Is your character good enough to be a good bureaucrat? आपके वैल्यूज क्या है, आपके एटीट्यूड क्या है, है ना, आपकी बिलीफ क्या है ये उनको मालूम होना चाहिए. बट द क्वेश्चन इज इट पॉसिबल टू चेक योर ethics थ्रू अ रिटन आंसर? और कल आपने मुझे आंसर शीट सबमिट कर दी, एक पेपर सबमिट कर दी, मॉक टेस्ट. Will that give me an idea as to who you are? Why? Because people are too smart these days to understand what UPSC wants and to write that much only without revealing who they are inside. है ना? तो मानो कोई बंदा patriarchal. Would he reveal that he is patriarchal in the answer sheet? No. He would fight like a feminist for the rights of women. You getting my point? If there is a question on dowry, would someone say that no, I would take dowry because there is a custom in my community? No, he won't say that. He would say that taking dowry is a crime by law, and one should not do it. इसको बोलते हैं to write answers politically correct. I'm getting my point. So people can deceive the UPSC, known as possibility of deception. So have you heard about the case of an IPS officer who was caught red-handed while doing copy in main exam? Yes, Hyderabad में case हुआ. In earlier attempt, he was selected for IPS, but he was appearing again to improve his rank and get IRS. But what he did in main exam, he was using due to technology to write the answers. Yeah, he was caught. Yes, इसको भी करा है. Case हुआ उसके ऊपर. But do you know what is more interesting thing about him? He was topper of ethics in earlier attempt, all India rank. Topper. Ethics में सबसे ज़्यादा marks उसको थे. Is it not a blatant example where UPSC might also go wrong in judging you? हो सकता है ना? और एक पॉसिबिलिटी हो सकती है जिसको बोलते हैं थियरी प्रैक्टिस डिवाइड. इसका मतलब क्या है? आज आप सच में अच्छे इंसान, आपके वैल्यूज अच्छे हैं, आपने कुछ गलत नहीं किया है, कर नहीं रहे हो, करप्शन कभी नहीं किया है, गुड वैल्यूज. बट इज देयर गारंटी दैट आफ्टर एक्वायरिंग पावर would you remain the same? गारंटी तो है नहीं ना. People change, power corrupts, ऐसा कहा जाता है. तो ये सब हमें मालूम हो रहा है. Don't you think that people who are sitting in UPSC don't know this? उनको भी ये मालूम होता होगा ना कि जो ये सब लोग लिख रहे हैं पेपर में, सब सही नहीं होगा, सब सच नहीं होगा, फिर भी वो आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी दे रहे हैं भाई. So the purpose of giving you this opportunity is not utilitarian purpose, instrumental. सिर्फ select करना ही purpose नहीं. Because UPSC knows that this subject is not taught compulsory in schools and colleges, like other subjects like history, politics, geography, economics, science. All these subjects are taught, at least it can stand up. है ना? लेकिन ethics को भी पढ़ाया जाता है compulsory. तो ये लैकुना है जो भी आपको अपब्रिंगिंग से मिला है as a part of your growth process, that may not be right thing. So should not you have an opportunity to examine yourself and correct things if they are wrong? Are you getting my point? But there is another aspect to it. What is that? Let's understand objectives of GS. इसके ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? तो पहला एज ए सब्जेक्ट एक ऑब्जेक्टिव है to help you to reinforce your value. Reinforce मतलब strengthen. जो भी हमें आज की वैल्यूज लग रही है, मानो मुझे लग रहा है मैं ऑनेस्ट हूँ, या एम्पैथेटिक हूँ, कंपैशनेट हूँ. Am I really convinced about my own values? Are they strong enough to stand the test of time and adversity? Because when everything is happening normally, everyone can claim to be virtuous. समझ में आ रहा है? जब सब लाइफ में अच्छा चल रहा है ना, सब अच्छा चल रहा है, जो हमें चाहिए वो सब मिलता है ना. पेट के लिए खाना मिल रहा है, एजुकेशन मिल रहा है, सेफ्टी सिक्योरिटी है, पीपल हु लव अस अराउंड देयर. बट व्हेन द टाइम कम्स, when we face crisis, Would we stack our values? ये तभी हो सकता है when your values are strengthened. But how to strengthen? Through deliberate studies of your own values. आपको पहले मालूम होना चाहिए जो भी मेरी वैल्यू है वो क्यों है. Why am I honest? Why am I compassionate? Why? Unless you have that strong justification, you cannot stand the test of time. Is that clear? So this is an opportunity to strengthen your values, to reinforce your values, to critically examine them, and then decide why are they your values. Is that clear? Second, to critically examine moral practices. But moral practices of whom? Of the group from which you come. ऐसा बहुत बार होता है ना. The way we have been brought up, we tend to believe everything which happens in our group is right. Why? Because बचपन से लेके जवानी तक हमने वही देखा है और लोगों को उसको सही कहते हुए देखा है. तो हम उसको गलत कहेंगे इसकी पॉसिबिलिटी कम है. I'll give you one interesting example. Few months back, there was a survey in India. Its name is known as NFHS survey, National Family Health Survey. Okay, in that survey, they had interviewed married women. And they had asked simple questions. One of the question was, do you think it is right for husband to beat wife and it is in her interest? ऐसा सवाल पूछा गया था. हस्बैंड ने बीवी को पीटना वो उसके लिए अच्छा होता है या बुरा होता है? 51% of women said it is good for the wife. Married women, they themselves said it is good for a wife to be get beaten by husband. Now tell me, is it inborn attitude among women, married women? उनको by birth ऐसे लग रहा है? No, it is a product of socialization. Socialization से वही सिखाते आ रहे हैं उनको. तो यार आपने कभी कभी ऐसे डायलॉग सुने होंगे ना फैमिली में, एटलीस्ट देखे तो सुने होंगे कि माँ ही खुद के बच्चों को बोलती है कि तुम्हारी वाइफ को तुम कंट्रोल में नहीं रख सकते. ही इज कंट्रोलिंग यू, यू आर नॉट कंट्रोलिंग हर. तो ये पेट्रियार्कल नैरेटिव है. एंड इफ यू हैव बीन ब्रॉट अप इन सच एनवायरनमेंट, यू टेंड टू थिंक इन द सेम वे. यू आर गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? एंड देयर आर मेनी मोर प्रैक्टिसेस लाइक दिस. So for example, you might have heard about virginity test conducted in certain community on a newly married bride. ये controversy हुआ था महाराष्ट्र में. Have you heard about it? नहीं सुना? कांजार भट्ट community. No, it is not medical test. By tradition, this community conducts virginity test on newly married woman on the very first night of interview. समझ में आ रहा है आपको? तो आप मुझे बताओ, is it not against human dignity to question someone's virginity? So if you are part of such community, unfortunately, then UPSC wants to give you an opportunity to critically examine your moral practice. So how many of you are from Marathwada? Marathwada se koi hai kya? So in Marathwada, it is normal to give big dowry, even in common family. Do you agree with me? तो अगर कोई लड़का या लड़की ऐसा बोल रहा है कि नहीं डॉवरी देना, नहीं लेना, व्हाट पीपल थिंक? लड़के को बोलते हैं कि तुझमें कुछ प्रॉब्लम है इसलिए तू ना बोल. सोचो ये कहां से आ रहा है? बिकॉज ऑफ योर मोरल प्रैक्टिसेस. So what UPSC thinks is you should have an opportunity to critically examine your own moral practice and then decide whether it is worth or not. Is that clear? Third है to help resolve moral dilemmas. So बहुत बार dilemma आते हैं लाइफ में, ये करें या वो करें. And unless we have right method, we tend to commit errors. So public administration में तो ये आना ही है. Sometimes your personal interest clashes with the public interest. ऐसा हो सकता है ना? घर में कोई बीमार है फिर भी आपको पब्लिक ड्यूटी पे जाना है. ऐसा हो सकता है. So at that point of time, what will you do and how will you justify your decision? ये आपको पहले सीखना. And finally, to overcome traditional biases, prejudices. तो ये भी अपब्रिंगिंग का ही पार्ट है ना. बहुत बार हमारा अपब्रिंगिंग हमें जैसे अच्छी चीजें दे रहा है वैसे बुरी भी चीजें दे रहा है. So people tend to develop prejudices about other genders. है ना? कभी आपने sexist जोक सुने हैं? Stereotyped. कि वुमन है तो ऐसे ही बिहेव करेगी, हस्बैंड है तो ऐसे ही बिहेव करेगा, है ना। कास्ट के बारे में प्रिजुडाइसेस होते हैं, वन कास्ट हैज प्रिजुडाइसेस अगेंस्ट द अदर कास्ट। रिलीजन के बारे में कम्युनल नैरेटिव जिसको बोलते हैं। आर यू गेटिंग माय पॉइंट? So tell me, if you're a communal guy or if you're a casteist guy, would you work for social justice? If you are gender biased opinions, would you work for gender equality as an administrator? No. तो अगर आप ऐसे सोचोगे ना, जो औरतें होती हैं उनको यही करना चाहिए, समझ में आ रहा है? And this is blatantly seen in the field of administration. तो ये अपॉर्चुनिटी आपकी, if at all you have such biases, try to overcome. Is that clear? So as a subject, these are the key objectives paper has put forward. But as a paper, as a process of selection, there are few things they are trying to see. One is your conviction. Conviction का मतलब क्या है? That you are really convinced of what you are saying. You are not saying for the sake of saying. Is that clear? So your conviction कैसे दिखाओगे आप? You have to think deeply and widely about what you are saying. Then only you can show that you have conviction about something that you are saying. That one. Second, they want to check your spontaneous response. तो पहले हमने देखा है ना, सेक्शन ए में एक क्वेश्चन हैंडल करने के लिए आपके पास 7.5 minutes. So in that limited time, it is very difficult to think thoroughly and come up with a beautiful answer. पहले भी कुछ सवाल कर सकते हो, लेकिन बाद में जब टाइम कम रह जाता है, what is inside comes outside. You might have heard about it, no? In SSB interview also, they conduct in first round situation reaction test. कुछ सेकंड के लिए एक पिक्चर दिखाया जाता है, and in few seconds you have to write one sentence about it. और आपको सोचने के लिए वक्त भी नहीं है. So what is inside comes outside, and this is what they want to check. Third, they want to see whether you are able to reconcile ideal with the practical. Because to be idealistic alone is not enough to make the difference. है ना, सिर्फ आइडियल होना काफी नहीं. जैसे करप्शन कम करना है वो सब ठीक है, लेकिन सिस्टम क्या चाहिए? अच्छे लोग चुनने हैं वो सब ठीक है, लेकिन वो सिस्टम क्या चाहिए? तो जो भी आपके आइडियल्स है, मानो ऑनेस्टी, ट्रांसपेरेंसी, अकाउंटेबिलिटी, उसको प्रैक्टिस में लाओगे तभी तो उसका कुछ इस्तेमाल होगा. तो इसका रिकंसिलिएशन जो है, बैलेंसिंग दिस टू एंड देन पुटिंग देम इनटू प्रैक्टिस, ये आपको आता है कि नहीं? उनको देखिए. सिर्फ आप ऐसे नहीं लिख सकते मैं करप्शन कम कर दूं. तो पूछेंगे कैसे, बताओ. सिर्फ आप ऐसे नहीं बोल सकते कि मैं ट्रांसपेरेंसी दिखाऊंगा. आपको ये दिखाना है सिस्टम क्या यूज करोगे ट्रांसपेरेंसी के लिए. What kind of rules, processes, system that you are going to use to show or bring transparency in your department. So that kind of reconciliation they want to check. And finally, they want to check your moral perception. That how you look at something from moral perspective. आपका moral angle क्या है? उसमें कौन सा नजरिया आप ला रहे हैं? कौन सी थियरी का इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं? Are you aware about enough theories to be able to deal with social reality? ये उनको चेक करना है. So these are all objectives of your ethics paper. वो आपको क्यों ये लिखने के लिए बोल रहे हैं, ये सब उनका पर्पस है. Now the next question is how to fulfill this. अब डिमांड तो मालूम हो गई, लेकिन उसको फुलफिल भी करना है, तो उसके कुछ डूज एंड डोंट्स है. प्लीज राइट डाउन दिस डूज एंड डोंट्स. पहला है, whenever giving example, give authentic example. और मेरे डूज में, डूज का मतलब क्या होता है? करो, है ना. तो एग्जाम्पल देते वक्त आपको कौन सा एग्जाम्पल देना है? जो ऑथेंटिक है. ऑथेंटिक मीन्स प्रूवन, जिसके बारे में सेटल डिबेट है ना. आपको प्रूफ देने की जरूरत नहीं. वंस यू मेंशन दैट एग्जाम्पल, इट इज प्रूवन, है ना. लेकिन क्लीशेड एग्जाम्पल मत दे दो. क्लीशेड का मतलब है हाइपोथेटिकल, सिपिटी एग्जाम्पल मत दे दो. है ना, सोशल मीडिया पे सुना था लेकिन उसका सोर्स मालूम नहीं, सब बोल रहे हैं लेकिन सोर्स मालूम नहीं, ऐसे एग्जाम्पल बिल्कुल नहीं है। जो न्यूज़पेपर में पब्लिश हुआ है, जहाँ डिबेट सेटल्ड है, ऐसे एग्जाम्पल दे दो। पोलराइजिंग एग्जाम्पल बिल्कुल मत। पोलराइजिंग मीन्स पीपल हैव डिवाइडेड ओपिनियन अबाउट इट, ऐसे एग्जाम्पल मत दे दो, बिकॉज द बर्डन लाइज ऑन योर शोल्डर। Second, when you give justification, it must be well thought out justification. Well thought out का मतलब thought out from all angles. सब डायमेंशन को सामने रख के आप उसको बोल रहे हैं। जैसे हमने सुसाइड के बारे में देखा था, that it is not enough to say only that suicide is wrong. There are different dimensions to it. Unless you explore those dimensions, you cannot deliver your judgment. है ना? तो ethics में भी अलग-अलग dimension होते हैं. And you have to explore all those dimensions and then say what you think is right or wrong. Okay. On top of that, avoid giving casual justification. Casual का मतलब लोग वही चीज बार-बार रिपीट करके कहें, तो उधर हमें रिमार्क देना पड़ता है, you are repeating the same thing, give me different thing. तो रिपीटेशन नहीं होना चाहिए, उसमें कैजुअलिटी दो. Then definition देते हो, precise definition देते हो. So what is the meaning of precise definition? No, contextual. आप ये पहले ध्यान में रखो, हर एक कंसेप्ट के लिए एक ही डेफिनेशन नहीं होता, मल्टीपल डेफिनेशंस आते हैं. अगर आपका सवाल क्वेश्चन इज गोइंग इन दिस डायरेक्शन, योर डेफिनेशन शुड आल्सो गो इन दिस डायरेक्शन. तभी एग्जामिनर को मालूम पड़ेगा दैट यू हैव अंडरस्टूड द क्वेश्चन. But if you give generic definition, like whenever I ask people a definition of democracy, they every time come up with definition given by Abraham Lincoln. Of the people, by the people, for the people. That is a very generic. You cannot use it every time. You have to understand the context in which we are talking about democracy. So the context might be voting, the context might be liberty, the context might be sovereignty, the context might be fundamental rights. So contextual definition आपको देंगे, vague and generic definition आपको avoid करना. Next is wherever possible show application to current affairs, because after all this is the paper of general studies. Is that true? तो आपको क्या करना है? Every time you have to show application to current affairs, but avoid dense and theoretical answers. डेंस एंड थ्योरेटिकल का मतलब सिर्फ थ्योरेटिकल आर्ग्यूमेंट से जिसमें फिलोसोफर का आप नाम ले रहे हो, उसका सेंटेंस डाल रहे हो, बट उसका अंडरस्टैंडिंग उसमें दिखाई नहीं. यू आर सिंपली रिपीटिंग व्हाट गांधी हैड सेड, यू आर सिंपली रिपीटिंग व्हाट एरिस्टोटल हैड सेड, विदाउट टेलिंग व्हाट यू हैव अंडरस्टूड एंड हाउ इट इज एप्लीकेबल. फाइनली आपके आंसर में कन्विक्शन दिखाई देना चाहिए, आंसर सुपरफिशियल नहीं होना चाहिए. सुपरफिशियलिटी इज इजी टू डिटेक्ट. जो भी लोग लिख रहे हैं उसमें सुपरफिशियलिटी है कि नहीं, इजी, बिकॉज योर इमोशंस आर एब्सेंट. हाउ यू फील, व्हाट यू फील इज नॉट सीन एनीवेयर. तो फाइनल आप ध्यान में रखो, GS4 का डिमांड क्या है? It is not enough to be correct. Don't matter, GS4 में it is not enough to be correct. You have to convince the examiner that you mean it, what you are saying. ये persuasion होना चाहिए, and that can happen through better examples and better justification. इसके लिए दो चीजें आपको सीखना है, एग्जाम्पल क्या होनी चाहिए और जस्टिफिकेशन के आर्गुमेंट क्या होने चाहिए. And ethics helps you to learn that. Exactly. So ethics का role क्या है? To help you to make better arguments so that you are able to justify your choices. And what are the examples that you can give in support? Is that clear? Okay. Now, to end with today's session, I'll go through frequently asked questions, and then you can ask you a question. So first question which is often asked in ethics is, isn't there something known as subjectivism, where right and wrong differs from person to person? है ना? ऐसी कुछ चीजें होती है ना जिसमें सही गलत एक जैसा नहीं होता है, जो मुझे सही लगे वो आपको नहीं लग सकता, तो फिर एथिक्स पढ़ेंगे कैसे? अगर मेरा और आपका सही गलत अलग अलग है तो एथिक्स कैसे पढ़ेंगे? Now let me tell you one thing. As far as your paper is concerned, they are giving you such question where there is a settled debate. वहां सब्जेक्टिविज्म नहीं आता, समझ में आ रहा है? वहां अलग अलग आंसर नहीं आए, क्योंकि अलग अलग आता है तो उसको मार्क्स देना पॉसिबल, ये सब्जेक्टिव हो जाता है। फिर एग्जाम में को भी जो सही लगेगा वो भी गलत हो सकता है, और उसको जो गलत लग रहा है वो भी सही हो सकता है। तो ये स्पेस यूपीएससी ने एलिमिनेट कर दिया। दिस इज नॉट अ पेपर लाइक दैट। तो यूपीएससी के पेपर में सही गलत आंसर होते हैं और वो अलग अलग नहीं होते, दे आर सेम फॉर ऑल। ऐसे ही इशू आपको देंगे, जो इशू जिसके ऊपर अभी एथिक्स ने भी सेटल डिबेट नहीं है वो आपको नहीं दे सकते। जैसे ईटिंग एनिमल्स, डू यू थिंक इट इज सेटल डिबेट? Euthanasia, do you think it is a settled debate? No, not yet. Is it not? In India, we have passive euthanasia. Euthanasia means mercy kill, where a person wants to die and you let him die. But active euthanasia allowed in. What about marital rape? Do you think it is a settled debate? तो ऐसे सवाल जहां जवाब सेटल नहीं है, वो सवाल आपको कभी पूछेंगे ही। Is that clear? ठीक है, so this is one thing. Second is आंसर कैसे लिखनी है, आइडियलिस्टिक और प्रैक्टिकल। हाँ, जो लोग ये सवाल पूछते हैं ना उनको ऐसे लगता है जो आइडियलिस्टिक है वो प्रैक्टिकल नहीं। That's wrong. Idealistic means driven by ideas, but doesn't mean it is not practical. In order to make your idealist opinion practical, you have to think about reconciliation between ideal and practical. तो आपके आंसर प्रैक्टिकली होने चाहिए, लेकिन उसका जो फाउंडेशन है वो आइडियलिज्म से। Third, do we have to quote philosophers in all answers? Not necessary. If the question is explicitly about philosophy, you remember that question, analyze John Rawls's concept of social justice in Indian context, then you can quote, and you'll have to quote. But if the question is not about philosopher, if the question is about your opinion, then quoting the philosopher is pointless, because it indicates that you don't have your own opinion. Are you getting my point? So sometimes you have to adopt opinion of philosopher and you have to say that this is my opinion, because after all we learn morality from the others, but then we say this is my morality. Is that clear? Quoting philosophers in all questions is strictly no. You have to do it sparingly wherever it is necessary, otherwise don't do it. That clear? Will taking philosophy as an optional help in ethics? Not necessarily, because philosophy as an optional has its specific demands. Okay, but ethics is a general studies paper where answers need to be written in a plain, simple English. So again, next is philosophical terms use karna hai ki? No. Why? Because it is not philosophy paper. What you have to use is only keywords related to thinker or theory. That's it. बाकी जो लैंग्वेज में प्लेन सिंपल प्रिसाइज इंग्लिश ही आना चाहिए, फॉर्मल इंग्लिश, इनफॉर्मल। ठीक है। Next question which is often asked is, can we use diagram? Yes, you should. You can, but stick to flow charts. Okay, and diagram should be relevant, should be self-explanatory, because it breaks the monotony of the writing. So diagram use कर सकते हैं. Then Should I always give arguments from both the sides? So not unless asked. कुछ सवाल ऐसे होते हैं जिसको बोलते हैं क्रिटिकल एग्जामिनेशन, उसमें दोनों भी साइड आपको बताना है, लेकिन कुछ सवाल में दे आर आस्किंग यू टू टेक अ स्टैंड एंड जस्टिफाई, तो आप दूसरा साइड भी नहीं बोल सकते, बिकॉज इफ यू डू दैट you might give impression that you are a fence sitter. You know who is fence sitter? The one who cannot decide what is right and what is wrong. वो इसको भी सही बोल रहा है और इसको भी सही बोल रहा है ना? इस मीट खाना सही है, मीट खाना गलत. So where you are no. But getting my point. ऐसा impression नहीं देना. Can I give example of politicians and contemporary leaders in answer? Of course, but again, those should be settled example. So किसको अगर convict किया है corruption में, you can safely give that example. But the one whose case is pending under judiciary, you cannot declare him as corrupt because that is sub judice. Is that clear? So settled child. Historical example are safe because that have settled it. Should I write answers in bullet points of paragraphs? Either is preferable, but bullet point is preferable where listing is required. Now, कुछ list there, causes, effects, advantages, disadvantages. ये listing हो रहा है तो bullet point ठीक है. But wherever you are giving arguments, paragraphs are missed. Is that clear? And finally, what is a reasonable score to target? If you look at mark sheets of topper, they are invariably above 120. And that's possible. So far, the highest marks in ethics are 153. But that has become thing of the past. इतना भी score नहीं आता है, but you can target 110 or 120 plus say. And if you want to score that much, you need to complete paper of at least 220 marks. Paper complete करना अच्छे से, तभी तो आपको 50% स्कोर आ सकता है उसमें. 250 करोगे तो और भी अच्छे हैं, but quality होना चाहिए. Just because you cover the paper doesn't mean you get the marks. Because UPSC has specifically written on your answer sheet that content is more important than length of the answer. So even if you don't complete 150 words, even if you write in 130 words, still it is okay, provided you give what is required. Is that clear? So these are all frequently asked questions as far as GS score is concerned. Now it's time to ask questions. Whatever I wanted to tell you from my side is that clear? Now it's your turn. Please ask me any question. कौन सा भी सवाल, कुठला ही प्रश्न चालेल. Any doubt, any question, anything you want to ask? Don't hold back. Whatever you have doubt, query. Be frank. No, don't connect it with ethics.